Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the messengers in our home. Hello, dear friends of Kardec Radio, and welcome back to the messengers in our home. Tonight we're going to talk about chapter 47, Hard at Work Again. Hello, Mackenzie.
Hi, Francisca. Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to another chapter of the messengers in our home.
And before we start, let's take a moment to elevate our thoughts to the higher spheres. Connecting ourselves to God, first cause of all things, the highest intelligence in the universe. Dear Mother, Father God, Creator of the universe and of our yet small hearts, we praise you for your greatness, for your love and justice that guide our lives, even though we may not necessarily understand everything as yet. We praise you for your creation, nature, all living beings. And we thank you so much for having given us this chance to be incarnated once again in a physical body here on earth, on our journey towards you, learning and growing. And especially for this opportunity, being gathered in your name, to study the laws of spiritual communication, to discover how much the good spirits, your messengers, are helping us and supporting us on our endeavors here on earth. And so we thank you for Kardec Radio, for this blessed medium for us to be together like we are as a universal family, wherever we are in the world, and be united in your name, in our wish to improve ourselves day by day. And with your permission, we now would like to start our meeting. So be it. So here we go. Let's listen to chapter 47. Enjoy.
Chapter 47, Hard at Work Again. Bentis's interpretation of the Gospel was given under the inspiration of an emissary of honorable position present at the gathering, and was received with overall respect among the discarnate spirits. There was not a similar display of harmony within the group of incarnates, however. A considerable instability of thought could be detected, and the anxious expectations of those present disturbed the vibrational current. Every now and then we were caught unawares by certain imbalances, which particularly affected the mediumistic abilities of Dona Isabel and the receptive attitude of the commentator, who seemed to lose his train of thought, as is commonly said. Co-workers acted to re-establish the rhythm as far as possible. We noticed, though, that a few of the incarnate brothers and sisters remained extremely restless, especially the ones newest to the doctrinal knowledge. They lacked discipline and allowed their minds to wander very far from the uplifting commentaries. Their mental pictures could be seen very clearly. Some of them were entangled in domestic matters, whereas others were impatient because they had not immediately achieved the goals that had brought them here. Aniceto, who never missed the opportunity to explain something new, discreetly commented, "Many disciples of Spiritism are concerned about the issue of concentration during work of a spiritual nature. There are many who try to set the standard regarding the outward appearance of the person who is concentrating. They require a certain body posture and expect to see immediate results in activities of this sort. Nevertheless, those who say they are concentrating are of course referring literally to the act of gathering something together. Well, if these incarnate friends don't take their responsibilities seriously outside the room of Spiritist practice, if they are perhaps cultivators of frivolity, indifference, deliberate and incessant error and stubbornness, and if they disregard the advice about perfection they give to others, what can they possibly gather together during a few fleeting moments of spiritual endeavor? Good concentration requires a righteous life, so that our thoughts can be gathered together in order to provide us with the ability for a noble union with the good. Preparatory work involving mental meditative activities of a higher order is essential. An inner attitude of laxity toward the gospel lessons they receive cannot instill believers or co-workers with a concentration of spiritual energies for a spiritually constructive work just because they devote themselves for only a few minutes during the week to the thoughts of Christian love required of them. As you can see, this is a complex subject and demands at length reflection and instruction. I began to pay more attention to the incarnate participants. If it were not for the devotion of the co-workers on our plane, any tangible progress would have been impossible. Isidoro and other devoted friends were hard at work, awakening some of the drowsy ones and readjusting the thoughts of the inattentive ones in order to neutralize certain harmful influences. I realized that the immediate benefits of what Bentes was teaching were much more evident among the discarnates. In that group, there was not a single one who didn't garner direct consolation and sublime comfort. Just as Bentes finished his commentary, and before Dona Isabel went to devote herself to the Receituario work, a discarnate woman approached Isidoro and asked him emotionally,
"My brother, could you ask our guides if it might be possible for me to communicate directly with my daughter? She's here at the meeting. I'm sure that, with due permission, our Isabel will heed my maternal anguish."
Isidoro showed a sincere desire to be helpful, but after exchanging a few words with a higher level instructor who was standing between the medium and Bentes, he answered her somewhat uncomfortably. His answer came as a great surprise to me. "My sister," he said, "our esteemed Anselmo does not consider your request possible. He has informed me that your daughter is still not in any condition to receive such a blessing. For the time being, she needs to display what she learned from your example while you were incarnate, and she also needs to remain in the arena of opportunity without having to rely on you so heavily." The woman was downcast, so Isidoro continued in a fraternal tone, "But that's not the only reason Anselmo felt he had to turn you down. Such a measure would cause your maternal sentiments serious trouble. Taking old acquired habits into consideration, your daughter, in her current evolutionary state, would depend too much on your aid. She would become too attached to her loving and sensitive mom, and you might find yourself disturbed in your new career as a spirit. She needs to be free to display what she learned from your example, whereas your heart must remain free because of the worthy merit you achieved at the cost of your sweat and tears while on earth. Therefore, considering the sacred character of maternal love, our guides cannot grant your daughter the right to disturb you. Do you understand? Don't let this temporary impossibility upset you. Remember that we are all children of God. The Lord will provide means to help your daughter on your behalf. As for the rest, let us rejoice in our work. Keep in mind that although you will not be able to help her directly, we can resort to an indirect method. Who knows? Perhaps tomorrow you will be able to meet with your daughter in a dream. The woman smiled, comforted, and replied,
That's true. I must come to grips with my new situation here.
At that moment, another spirit approached Isidoro with a request. My friend, I would appreciate your help with the physicians so they can provide additional recommendations for my nephew Amaro. He needs relief for his physical health. Isidoro displayed a meaningful expression and responded, I cannot, my friend, I cannot. If Amaro himself were to ask, and if the physicians were to agree, everything would be just fine. However, you know that our patient is very rebellious. I have already arranged to provide him with medical guidance from our plane 5 times, but he has never acknowledged our efforts. He is unwilling to buy the recommended medications himself, but whenever his friends do it for him, he disregards the dosing schedules and thinks he is above the method. He caustically criticizes the recommendations he receives and then makes use of them with disdain. Of course, I'm not annoyed by this, just as an adult would not be irritated by the games of a child. But you need to understand that we are dealing with a very sacred matter, and there is no time to waste on those who enjoy playing games. Furthermore, giving to those who do not want to receive would not be charitable. Isidoro spoke with an inflection of fraternal goodness, which smoothed over any sense of harsh frankness. I understood that to assist so many people and wend one's way through so many different matters, it would not be possible to treat them in any other way. The work continued with great educational value for Vicente and me. The efforts of the spirit clinicians, along with the selflessness of the special intermediary, touched my heart. In fact, it took a great deal of selflessness to attend to the massive and considerable work in the area of assistance to the incarnates there, because few of the attendees seemed to maintain a corresponding attitude of sublime fraternal dedication in the name of the Master. However, reading my thoughts, Aniceto commented, Someday, Andre, Jesus will help you understand that it is better to serve than to be served, more blessed to give than to receive. And tonight we're talking about chapter 47, Hard at Work Again. As if there is not enough hard work at all times at this place where Andre is. It is very interesting that he mentions this hard at work when he is inside the Spiritist Center, or if we don't want to call it a Spiritist Center, of that house of prayer that Dona Isabel and Isidoro had set up at their own place, which is usually how we start a Spiritist Center, or at least in the past it used to be. I'm not sure if it still happens today. Hopefully it still does happen like that, as if a person doesn't have a Spiritist Center close to her house or to his house, and then they would go to a Spiritist Center far away, and they would feel the need to be more in close contact with the teachings. And then instead of taking a long time to get to the Spiritist Center, they would just start a new gospel at home at their place, or some people call it gospel at home, some people call it God at home. It really doesn't matter. The idea is we get a good book, we get the Gospel According to Spiritism or any other good book of inspirational messages, and then we start doing this meeting every week with discipline. And then if we've been following, right, the messengers, the book, the reading, and our comments here, we would see how Donna Isabel does and what we can see from the spiritual realm, what happens in her house, in her place. So if we start doing the same, maybe one day there will be a Spiritist Center there at our house or at the house of our friends that need this. And that's how it used to start in the past. I know a few examples of this. And then these days there are Spiritist Centers that open their doors to other people to come and to hear the comforting message of Spiritism, which is none other than just bringing back the teachings of Jesus, of our dear Master, of our dear friend that wants all the good for us. So it is interesting that he says that it's hard at work again. And then we already read the chapter, you already heard our reading and Francisca's reading there. So we already know what's going on. And the chapter starts with Andre describing that there was this reading and the interpretation of the gospel. Probably Bentes opened one of the Gospels of the Bible, or maybe the Gospel According to Spiritism, and then he spoke about it. And he says, and it's interesting that Andre mentions that his comments, right, his interpretation was given under the inspiration of an emissary of honorable position present at the gathering. So it is very interesting, and we know that from different people who speak, who give these comments and who gives these lectures, that they always feel inspired. And some of them even tell stories, like Divaldo Franco, which is a great medium in Brazil, and he writes, he psychographs, right, a lot of books from different spirits, but he also has this great work, social work in Brazil, that attends to 3,000 people, 3,000 kids and their families in Salvador, Bahia. So he even mentions sometimes in his lectures, that he feels the presence of the spirits of some of these instructors giving him tips and giving him certain ideas so that he can better inspire those who are listening to him. So if we are on that type of work, be it just reading and giving a small interpretation of an inspirational message, if we are connected and if we study enough, then the good spirits will always come and be able to inspire us using our own knowledge, the knowledge that we already have. And sometimes they will give us ideas so that we can really touch hearts of some specific people in the audience, because every time we talk, even if it's for the same people, sometimes we never know exactly what those people need to hear. And sometimes we come prepared with something to say. All of a sudden, everything is changed. Why? Most possibly and very likely to be some of these good spirits who are noticing that they're through that line of thought that I'm going, that we would be going, it would not be as helpful to those who are listening. So then they blow in our minds like a small hint, and then we catch up we catch those hints, and if we are able to connect to them, then the commentary will really touch the hearts and the minds of those who are listening to us, or to you, if you are one who are doing this in your Spirit Center. So it is very important for us to keep the discipline of studying, to keep the discipline of having good mental thoughts, and trying to have spiritualized thoughts at all times, because during these extra hours, right, when we are not at the Spirit Center, is where we can learn more, where we can practice more. And I'm just doing this introduction in this paragraph here because if you paid attention to the reading, that's basically what we have at at least the first half of this chapter. This preparation, right? This work that it's not done only inside the Spirit Center, but also outside, and most likely more of the time is outside the Spirit Center, because if we are, like, let's say, if we are very, very hard workers and we can be at the Spirit Center for long hours, it will be how much time, right? If we take like 2 hours, if we were to the Spirit Center, let's say 7 days a week, it would be what? 2 times 7 would be 14 hours. And how much time do we spend outside the Spirit Center? That 14 hours is not even 2 days of work, right? If we consider an 8-hour work shift. So it's much more time that we spend outside the Spirit Center. So we have to be very aware of that, and that time outside of the Spirit Center is where we really show if we are learning, if we are really, if we are really willing to become a good worker at the Spirit Center, a good Christian, right? A good Spiritist practitioner, as some people like to call us. So it is very important for us. So it is interesting, so that we continue with the paragraph that Andres says that speech, that interpretation of the gospel was received with overall respect among the discarnate spirits. So he obviously is talking about him, about Vicente, about Aniceto, and all the other workers there that we don't know their names, and they are not less important than these three. But what he says is, continuing, he says that there was not a similar display of harmony within the group of incarnates, however, and that touches us more profoundly, right? Bentes is an incarnate spirit, so he is there physically talking to those who are there physically present or incarnated at that moment. And what Andre is saying is that we, the incarnate ones at this moment right now, are the ones who are not displaying the harmony within ourselves, which is considerably different than what happened to the discarnate ones. And he says that this instability of thought could be detected, and the anxious expectations of those present disturbed the vibrational current, showing us how much important it is for us to really try to stay focused and really try to display this harmony, or try to be in harmony, not to display harmony, but to be in harmony. And then he says that these disturbances, right, could have affected the whole meeting, including, but not limited to, right, and he mentions 2 things: the mediumistic abilities of Dona Isabel, which will do the receituario, and we talked about it last week, which is, she will psychograph from those spirit physicians some herbal medicines or certain comments, and asking them to read certain books or to do certain things in terms of behaving better, of improving such and such qualities here and there. So this is part of the job of what the receituario is. And also, it was disturbing Bentes, which is the one who is speaking to the incarnate ones. those disturbances would make him lose his train of thought, right? So he is going on saying something and thinking about it because he is connected to the good spirit who is there to help him. And then all of a sudden, because of these disturbances, because of our imbalances in our minds, what we are thinking, that we are not concentrating and really not there, fully not there, then it would disturb him. But then the group of spirits who are working would come and try, and really make the effort of trying to pick these people, these thoughts, and then make them see if they could help the incarnate ones to focus again. I'm going to jump a little bit from this to the two paragraphs after, or 3 paragraphs after, when Andres says that he begins then to pay more attention to the incarnate participants. And he says, this is the paragraph, and he says, I'm going to quote, "If it were not for the devotion of the co-workers on our plane, any tangible progress would have been impossible." So what Andre is saying is that because of all this disturbance, all these disturbances that we, the incarnate ones, were causing in the atmosphere, if it were not for them, for the discarnate spirits trying and to get their focus again back to what they needed to be doing at that moment, it would be impossible to have progress on those meetings. But he goes on, and he says, Isidoro and other devoted friends were hard at work, awakening some of the drowsy ones and readjusting the thoughts of the inattentive ones in order to neutralize certain harmful influences. So it is very interesting that Andre mentions this, and this is an alert for all of us who go to the Spiritist Center or go to a temple, go to a church. Doesn't matter what we call, doesn't matter what religion it is. If we are there, we should be there, right? This is something that's so important. It's almost awkward to say this, but if we are at a place and we are only physically at that place, the question is, are we really there, right? Of course, we can gather, we can be helped physically, being in presence of good people, but are we actually really, really receiving something that can be worth it for us to really improve? Or are we just waiting for a miracle to happen when we are physically present on that place, but not mentally present on that place, right? Thinking about completely different things, right? Not paying attention to what is being said, not understanding or really feeling what is being said there, and really feeling the presence of the good spirits, really being open to the help that we are getting. Because that's what, and then I will come back to the second paragraph of the chapter, when Andres says that those who are were less concentrated, right, were less focused, are the ones, and this is to some degree very understandable, and it would be worse for us who are spiritists of a long time, right, who have already discovered Spiritism a while ago and are still, fortunately, still going and still in love with the path that we are taking, with the knowledge that we are getting, with the comfort that we are getting from these words. So the ones who are just starting are the ones who are more or less restless, more than us who are there for a longer time. However, it is important for us to keep in mind that it's not just because we are there for a long time we are any better, or we are any better in focusing, any better in helping. Sometimes we are we have been going for such a long time that we feel so relaxed, so laxed with what's going on there, that we are just there. Just like you said, we're only our bodies are there, and then we are already thinking of what's going to happen, what's going to do, what's happening outside the church, what's happening in my place, in my house. And that's what Andres says right there. Their mental pictures could be seen very clearly. Some of them were entangled in domestic matters. Oh, so I'm thinking of a problem that I had outside the Spiritist Center, that I had with my daughter, that I had with my wife, that I had with my husband, with my boss, with my teacher, and then I'm not there. Others, he continues, were impatient because they had not immediately achieved the goals that had brought them here or there, if we are the ones saying. So what are we doing at the Spiritist Center? What am I doing at a church? What am I doing at the temple that I'm going to? What am I doing at the mosque that I'm going to? I'm just following a ritual, thinking that the ritual will save me, will make me a better person just for the ritual itself? Or am I really, really trying to learn the deep meanings of the message, to go inside of myself? And how can I do that if not focusing, if not leaving some other stuff outside when I am at that specific place? I bet that when I'm at a school, right, and the teacher is there trying to teach me whatever, math, English, history, psychology, if I am not there mentally, what will I learn? I will have to go over and over and over that teaching again, right? I will have to read it again. And even if I am there, right? Even if I am mentally there, sometimes I cannot understand, and then I will have to go back to the book and read it again. So imagine if sometimes I am there physically and mentally, and I cannot understand something. Imagine if I'm just there with my body and my mind is elsewhere, doing something completely different. So I am not, and seen from the spiritual perspective, I am not only not getting it for myself, and depending on what I am thinking, I am even disturbing the environment. I am disturbing those who are there and want to work. So it is a double responsibility for ourselves, right? To think about it is for myself, but it is also for the others. For Bentes, in this case, was trying to give us a lecture, and then we are thinking of different things and not focusing, and I don't know, these days cell phones, right, disturb us all the time. We keep thinking of, I need to check Facebook, or I need to do this on my, and then the person says something at the lecture there, right, and then I didn't understand, or my curiosity can't wait, and then I go to the phone and then do a search on that word and then start reading what that thought means, and then I lose what he is saying, right? I lose the main idea of what the person is teaching us. So it is very important for us when we are at a certain place to be there, right? Not to be elsewhere. If I am there, let's be there. Let's be present at the place where we are. And it's also, if we go on and think it over again, we will say that it's even a respectful way of being there, of showing respect to those who are talking, if we are really listening to those, right? If we imagine ourselves there talking or saying something to a friend or to a group of people, how would I feel if I were speaking to a lot of people and all of them were looking down, not paying attention, doing something else, talking between them, talking among them, and not paying attention to what I was saying? So it is a show of respect as well to those who are there doing their job and presenting what they had to present to us, what they came there to do it to ourselves, right? So after all this, Andres says that Aniceto, who never misses an opportunity to explain something new, commented to him,
look, Andre, and then here comes a lot of what I just said, right? Naturally, we prepare, we read everything, and then we make a comment on everything, or try to do so. Aniceto, it says, hey, we were talking about concentration, right? About being focused. And let's see what Aniceto says. Many disciples of Spiritism are concerned about the issue of concentration, right? Or focus during work of a spiritual nature. And then remember that we just spoke about rituals, and that's what Aniceto will tell us here. There are many who try to set the standard regarding the outward appearance of the person who is concentrating a ritual. Or, I need to be sitting down, or I need to be standing up, or I need to kneel down, I need to close my eyes, I need to open my eyes, I need to be chanting, I need to be in silence. So this is the outside, right? This is the outward appearance. And this is something that we really need to pay attention to. What Aniceto is trying to say here is not that this cannot be done. No, because some of us would just say, "Oh no, you can't do this," or "You can't do that." I never heard this in the Spiritist Center, thankfully, but we may hear this saying that, if you don't kneel down to pray, or if you don't sit down to pray, or if you don't, if you're not silent, if you're, then you can't do this. You can't concentrate. Every person is different. Naturally, there are some general rules, in that it is much, much harder, right, to concentrate if you're, let's say, in the middle of a rock concert and you want to pray, right? Why? Because of all the noise, because of all the people jumping around you. It is hard to concentrate in that situation. Is it impossible? No, I wouldn't say it is impossible, but it is very hard. It will take a long effort, and a lot of effort from that person to be able to concentrate, to focus and isolate himself or herself to do a very deep and very deep prayer, right? To really focus on the prayer and not to pay attention to what is outside. Therefore, it is natural that when you have a silence, or you have a close to a very close to a silent, completely silent place, it is much easier to concentrate. But is it possible for everybody? No, maybe there's a person who needs to have a small noise, right? Be it of a very calm music at the background, where you can go with the flow of the music, and then it will help you concentrate. Yeah, but it is not only the outward appearance of the person and the outside noise or not noise, not the high level of noise or the low level of noise that will make the prayer or the concentration to be better. It is inside that counts. It is how we are dealing with that situation, right? And Aniceto goes on and says, they require a certain body posture and expect to see immediate results in activities of this sort. But if I am on the outside, completely still, but my mind is seeking, looking for something outside, a problem that I had, remembering something bad that happened, and not paying attention to what's going on, we are not concentrating. It can be in a rock concert, or it can be in a very silent place. It will not make a difference, because I will not be concentrating. So it's not outside. It is what goes inside. But what Aniceto wants to point out to us is that, let's think here for a second. I want to concentrate, to be able to concentrate inside the Spiritist Center, right? I want to be able to focus when I am there sitting, watching a good speech, or even a bad speech. It doesn't matter. If I am there to listen to the words, to listen to the teachings, and I want to be able to focus there. What Aniceto asks us here in this paragraph is, well, you want to concentrate when you're inside the Spiritist Center. My question to you is, of course he doesn't say like that, but my question to you is, how do you practice concentration outside of the Spiritist Center? Remember that we just said that if we go a lot of times to the Spiritist Center during the week, we would probably not go more than 14 hours. And out of those 14 hours, are we always trying to be concentrated there? If we were, that would also and already be a good effort to do. But we are not. But 14 hours out of the whole week that we have to live, that we live outside of the Spiritist Center, will count even more towards my learning of having a good focus or being concentrated.
Now, let's see what Aniceto says about good concentration again. He says, good concentration requires a righteous life. So, if we are not doing it inside the Spiritist Center already, it really should point out that we are not doing it outside of the Spiritist Center. Because if we are doing it, if we are making an effort to gather together, right, on our regular life, it will naturally be easier, be much more, let's say, be effortless to be focused and concentrated inside the Spiritist Center. But our problem is that we don't do it outside the Spiritist Center. We don't prepare ourselves on our regular day-to-day life. And then, naturally, when we get inside the Spiritist Center and we try to have a good concentration, it will not happen because we're not practicing. So it is very interesting that it is as if we are trying to usually do the least effort to achieve success, right? So he goes on. So there are thoughts can be gathered together in order to provide us with the ability for a noble union with the good. Preparatory work involving mental, meditative activities of a higher order is essential. It is a day-to-day task. It is not something that we start and then 10 minutes later I'm already able to concentrate. It requires effort to learn how to concentrate. And he goes on, and this is a very, very tough advice or realization when he says, and I'm going to quote again, an inner attitude of laxity toward the gospel lessons they receive cannot instill believers or co-workers with the concentration of spiritual energies for spiritually constructive work just because they devote themselves for only a few minutes during the week to the thoughts of Christian love required of them. So, as we've been saying for the past few minutes, it doesn't help that if we don't do it throughout the week to concentrate, to focus on what we're doing, and then when we get inside the Spiritist Center and we want to help the work and we are not able to focus and then complain because it's hard, of course it is hard, because we relax too much, or I wouldn't say relax, we lax, right? The inner attitude of laxity toward the gospel lessons, meaning that we hear the lessons, we know what we need to do, but then we don't focus to do what we just learned. And then for only a few minutes during the week, we try to have those thoughts of Christian love when we are inside the Spiritist Center. Of course it will be hard, right? It is as if, oh, I only went to one lesson the whole semester of, I don't know, that psychology class that I'm taking,
and then I take the test, and then I cannot remember. Of course, you've not been studying, we've not been reading, we've not been focused on the lessons and on the teachings. Of course, when the exam comes, I will not be ready. That's basically the same thing that happens to all of us. And then Andre talks about, we already read a few of the next chapters here when he says that, some people are drowsy, and we should be very careful about that as well. It's a lack of concentration. A good advice that I heard from some people: if you're tired but you want to go and you want to be focused, then you stand up, right? You stand up and keep paying attention. If you're, go wash your eyes. So don't fall prey to being tired, or to, to being sleepy and then sleeping when the person is talking. It's we're not showing respect to them, and it's kind of really bad for ourselves, being prey of our own problems and of our own creation of difficulties in our own lives. So Donna Isabel, just after Bentes finishes commentary, she will start the Receituário work. But before that, right before that, a discarnate woman comes to Isidoro and asks him if Isidoro could ask the guides if it would be possible for her daughter to communicate, for her to communicate with her daughter, who is present at that specific meeting. And if we connect this question, right, this asking, right, she is asking for this favor, for this help, with what Andre said before, when some of them were entangled in domestic matters, as Andre describes, and then naturally here we see that maybe this lady is asking to communicate with her daughter, and her daughter is one of those who are maybe trying to get her communication to be done at that very moment, and she is not, she will not get it, and then maybe she's getting disconcerted and maybe a little bit angry because she is not getting what she wants at that specific moment. Or maybe she's so entangled in domestic matters that she cannot concentrate on what she should be concentrating. Maybe what Bentes was talking was to be heard by her, so that she would get comfort and be more prepared to live through her difficulties, to live through her lives. So this lady comes to ask Isidoro for permission to talk to her, and Isidoro wants to help, goes, and after talking to some of the higher level instructor that was right there, he had to come back and answer somewhat uncomfortably to her. And he says, right, that Anselmo does not consider the request, the lady's request, possible, because her daughter is still not in any condition to receive this blessing, because she relies on her mother so much. She will not be ready to receive this help. Otherwise, she would be relying even more on what to do, and what a spirit would need to come and tell her what to do. And that's a very good lesson for us, right? For those who have some of their loved ones already died, already discarnated, and they are trying to receive a communication, they are trying to receive help from them. This is one of the possible explanations why they have not received yet. Sometimes we get so dependent on these things that we are not ready to receive these blessings, as we discussed maybe last chapter, when Aniceto told Andre that sometimes silence is the best answer. So you don't say no, you don't say yes, you just keep silent, and then the person needs to decide what to do. Otherwise, it would be as if the person had not free will, would have not the free will of choice for her own life, waiting and expecting, always expecting something from a spirit to come and tell, oh, you should do this, you should do that, and then it would not be helpful, it would not be healthy for a spirit to do so. So Anselmo tells her that he tells Isidora that she can't have that at that specific moment, and that her daughter would not be able to receive that. The woman feels like sad, of course, but Isidora goes on to tell her even more. And Isidora says, well, but that's not the only reason that he had to turn you down. Not only your daughter would be in trouble if receiving this because of what we see in her, but you yourself would not. It would not be good for you. It would cause your maternal sentiment serious trouble because you just discarnated. So now you have your new job, quote unquote, your new career as a spirit, as the words that he says here. So you have to go on, you have to move. You cannot talk to her directly. You cannot send her message directly right now. However, and then he will tell her at the end, maybe, tomorrow, meaning one day in a near future, you will be able to talk to her in a dream. So you will be with her. She will not know exactly, she will not remember precisely that you were with her, but this will give her comfort, and then she will have to take her decision on what to do without being so heavily reliant on your advice. So she needs to, talking to the mother, she needs to learn to do what she learned from you. Otherwise, she will not be free to decide on herself and will always be blaming others for her mistakes. No, she needs to learn to take care of herself. And so don't get too sad. God never abandons anyone. So remember, we are all children of God. He will do the best to help her, but she needs to help herself out. She needs to walk on her own two legs and go on with her own life. The woman smiles, comforted, and then she replies, that is true. I must come to grips with my new situation here. Hopefully, if we enter in a situation like that, or if we are living on the incarnate side now, situation like that, or when we die and we are living on the other side, in the situation of this woman, hopefully we will be able to understand as well and as easily as this woman understood, showing that she has a real, true understanding of God's wishes, of God's desires for our lives, without being aggressive or resentful of what's going on with our own lives, understanding that everything has to be done according to a higher will than ourselves, because we are not able to see everything from our still shorter point of view than these good spirits who are always trying and striving to help us to get the best from our experiences and from our lives. At that moment, another spirit approaches Isidore with a request, and then he would say, hey, I need your help, Isidore, if you can. I have this friend, Amaro, and he needs relief for his physical health. Isidore, for this one, he doesn't even need to ask permission, doesn't even need to talk to anyone. He probably knows already this the case of this man, right, Amaro. And he says, unfortunately, I can't, my friend. I cannot. If Amaro himself were to ask meaning it is not Amaro who wants, it's other people interfering in his life and asking on his behalf, right? So this is the understanding of the very first sentence here about Amaro, right? If Amaro himself were to ask, and if the physicians were to agree, meaning if Amaro asked and the physicians who are treating him were to agree with his request, right? Everything would just be fine. However, that's not what's happening. Our patient, right, Amaro, is very rebellious. We already gave him 5 times, the advices, medical guidance, but he doesn't acknowledge anything. He doesn't follow the instructions. He thinks that he's above what the recommended dosage of these medicines are. He criticizes everything, and even when taking the medicine, he treats it with disdain. So this is a very, very interesting case, and hopefully we are not in this case on anything that we live, on anything that we do, be it inside the Spiritus Center or outside the Spiritus Center. Some people are like this when they're going to doctors, not even to Spiritus Center. They don't agree, they fight against their doctors, they fight against the medicine, they criticize everything, and it is as if they don't want to be helped, right? So that's what Amaro here is. In Amaro, this word in Portuguese means bitter. So we can see by what he's doing that he is embittered and that he is a bitter person, right? He doesn't take things on the sweet side. He just embitters himself and tries to embitter other people. Isidoro says, hey, I'm not annoyed by this, but this is because this is just a child's game. However, you need to understand, we have so many people to serve here, and we cannot be wasting time. We gave him once, twice, 3 times, 5 times already. We cannot waste time on those who are not willing, not even to come and ask. Furthermore, he finalizes, right? Given to those who do not want to receive would not be charitable. It is as if we are forcing down other people's throats what I believe, and that's not how a good conversation, that's not how a good advice, that's not how a good medicine should be served to other people. The person needs to want to receive, right? It is a general rule, right? Or a lot of people accept this, that if, let's say, a person is addicted to a certain type of drug, then you force that person to go to a place, to a detox place. The person needs to want to go. If the person doesn't want to go, they will be, quote unquote here, healed or cured of that addiction for a while, but inside of the person doesn't want to get cured, so it will not make a huge difference. It will make a difference for a few months, maybe, but then the person will fall down. So even when we want is hard. Imagine if we don't want and we are fighting against it. That's basically what Isidoro is teaching us here. Look, if you're sick, and other people want to help you, pay attention to what they're saying. And if you don't want, say you don't want, but don't go waste other people's times. But if you perceive at one day that you need the help, seek the help for yourself. Through the help of somebody, there's no problem in that. But it will be you, it will be me, it will be us looking for this help. Unfortunately, this was not the case with this friend here, Amaro, the bitter one. But one very important note that Andre tells us here is that, because sometimes we take these advices from these books, these are very good advices, but we read these words with a certain type of tone in our heads. And then we imagine that Isidoro, for example, could be like being a harsh person, talking to this friend, to this spirit, being harsh with him and saying that, hey, get out of here, I don't want to treat you. And that's not how it happens, right? He uses the inflection, while speaking, of fraternal goodness, which smoothed over any sense of harsh frankness. So Isidoro was frank. He was telling the truth, but he didn't use harsh words. He used a fraternal tone. He used a tone of love and caring. I care about him. We wanted to help him. We already helped him 5 times already, and we keep trying to help. But we have other matters to attend to here. And unfortunately, he will have to wait a while to be helped helped again. If he comes and if he wants to, you be sure he will be helped. He will be received the same way he was received the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the 5th time. But right now, we have other matters to attend. We will not be able to help him right now. And this would be with that fraternal goodness tone, no harsh frankness, no truth, thrown like a stone in the face of the other person. No. We would, if we want to help other people, first, it doesn't matter how that help is received. If it's received without gratitude or with gratitude. It's not about how the other person receives the help, but it's about how we give the help that we are supposed to give if we are in this type of work. And even if we are not in this type of work, if we remember very well the first part of this chapter, that our habits, our the way that we behave throughout our lives should be consistent with the gospel lessons that we learn, so that we can behave according to the gospel inside the Spiritus Center, outside the Spiritus Center, inside the temple, outside the temple, inside the mosque, outside the mosque, because the gospel is not supposed to be inside the temple. The gospel is supposed to be inside the mosque of our hearts, inside the church, the Spiritus Center, the temple of our hearts. The work continues, right? Vicente and Andre are learning a lot about everything there at that specific Spiritus Center, and about how to deal with people, how to treat people, how to receive what they're getting from all these teachings. But they also need to learn how to give. And not only them, we need to learn how to give, because it is better to serve than to be served. The more blessed ones are those who give, not those who receive. And that's how Aniceto finalizes the chapter, when Andre comments that, or thinks about how selfless these clinicians, these physicians, these spirits are, or need to be, to help other people. And then that's what Aniceto teaches us once again. One day, Andre, Jesus will help you understand. And when he's saying, Andre, Jesus will help you understand, what actually he is saying is that for us, hopefully, Jesus will make us understand one day that it is true, that it is better to serve than to be served. It is more blessed the one who gives than the one who receives. Because if we follow Jesus' advice, or Jesus, not even advice, Jesus' practice of what he was preaching, he says, I didn't come here to be served. I came to serve, when he is washing the disciples, the apostles' feet, right? He says, if you don't allow me to wash your feet, I don't have part with you, meaning I am the one to serve. So we, everybody, are the ones who need to be serving. And one day we will understand this, because it is not about receiving gratitude from the others, but about serving the others, serving the ones who want to be served, who need the service that we are providing, and who want, to receive the help, to know that they need help, and then that we can be helpful. And if we are the ones who at this moment need to receive, that we be open to receive, that we really accept the help with humility. And then after receiving, after improving, after this improvement of what I just received, if I need a message, if I need the passes, if I need the teaching, I receive the teaching, and right after that, I start to serve right away, right there. And then we will hopefully one day understand that this is what makes us feel whole. It is what makes us feel more complete. It is by giving. It is by serving others, as Jesus keeps serving us at all times. So I hope that we all had a good week, and I hope that we have a great week ahead of us, for us to return next week once again here at Kardec Radio on the Messengers in our home. Have a great week, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.